Today I'm going to tell you a story about the 66 C10. In order to do that, I need to back up probably about a year and tell you about 10 other stories to get there. My uncle lives in Texas, and we had gone down there to pick up the Studebaker, and he told us all kinds of stories about how he and my dad used to bring cars up from Texas to Wisconsin, obviously. Clean Texas sheet metal in Wisconsin's worth quite a bit of money. So, the following year, I had built a 2-car wedge trailer because going down there, my uncle lives on a goat path of a driveway, and we borrowed my friend's 36-foot gooseneck, and I was in the ditch on both sides of the road at the same time trying to get in there. So I wanted to build something kind of short and nimble and still be able to haul 2 vehicles back. So I ended up building that air-ride wedge. Anyway, middle of last summer here, seen an auction come up out in South Dakota, claiming over 100 project cars. Well, that's right up my alley. So my good buddy Dick and I hooked up and headed out there. Remember, it was probably a 5 or 6 hour drive to get out there. And one of the first trucks we were bidding on, I was bidding against this other gentleman, and we went back and forth a while, and we both gave up on it because I think it went for way too much money for what it was. But immediately after the truck sold, the gentleman I was bidding against come up to me and he says, "Are you looking for Chevy trucks?" I said, "Yeah, what do you got?" He said he had amassed quite a collection of them. I want to say he told me over 100 trucks. So he took my auction ticket, and on the back he wrote his phone number for me, and continued on our day, and bumped into him a couple other times and chit-chatted. Well, we didn't end up buying anything. I take that back. I bought a pile of license plates out there. That was it. And we were in the line to pay for our items, and he ended up right next to us again and asked him what he had bought and whatnot. And he said he had bought a couple cars. I asked him where he lived, and he says, "Well, I'm about an hour south of here." Our trailer was empty, so I asked if we could come down that day, but he had something else going on, so we weren't able to make that happen. So we headed home, empty trailer. We did end up picking up a 65 Riviera on the way home, a parts car, from a nice young gentleman. A couple months later, in October, my girlfriend and I planned a road trip to go down to Texas to my uncle's and spend a couple days and, beat the bushes a little bit and try to find some vehicles to bring back. We had a couple things we looked at on the way down. We dropped a car that I had here. I had a 46 Pontiac Streamliner. I dropped that off in Chicago on the way down to a pretty cool little shop. They needed, it was a pretty rough car. They just needed some cuts off of it. But dropped that off and swung down through Indiana, because there was another car we wanted to check out there, and into Kentucky, and kind of across Arkansas, made a big loop. It was kind of a little vacation for us, so we took our time getting down. We did get to Texas. I think we spent 2 or 3 days down there. And I don't know what the deal is down there, but without connections, you're kind of wasting your time. You've got to know somebody that's got some stuff, because buying off a marketplace in a place where you're not familiar with doesn't pan out. I could buy cleaner trucks cheaper right here in Wisconsin than I could buy in Texas. which is I was appalled by. But anyway, so we're to Dallas now and heading back north, still with an empty trailer, and we ended up swinging to the west on the way home to continue our loop. We went to Brown Auto Salvage in Texas, which is a pretty cool yard. They've got a lot of stuff. Nice people too. I bought some trim items for the Buick there, my 65 Buick. And headed her north up through Kansas and through the edge of Nebraska. Head on a swivel looking for something to take home. I can't remember where we ended up staying, but just looking at the map, the way we were heading straight north. And I could see that we were kind of pointing at South Dakota, so I called this gentleman that we had met out there. This is months later now. And asked if we could swing in and check out his stuff. I said, we're empty. We just drug this trailer all the way across the nation, and I said, it's either your place or bust. So we ended up heading up there. And very delighted with what he had. Lots of 60 to 66 trucks. A lot of rough stuff, but that's to be expected. Even the stuff in the Dakota is getting pretty picked over as far as you're not going to find a short bed truck out there that's in any type of shape for sane money, same as anywhere. Yeah, the trucks that are left over are old farm trucks, a lot of 3/4 tons. You know, they got put out to pasture and the cattle rubbed on them for the last 30 years. We ended up picking out some trucks, and he treated me very well on them. Loaded them up and headed home. And after that, I think I sold that first trucks in a couple days. I priced them right, not trying to get rich off them, but pay for the fuel and make it worth the trip. So the second trip I took out there, ended up buying a 63 Chevy a couple towns over from where he's at. And it was in the evening. I got loaded up there. So I got a hotel for the night. And he let me drop my trailer at his place there for the night, so I didn't have to drag it into town and try to park it at the hotel. That was nice. But that following day we met back up, and he ended up taking me out to a place he was cleaning out that had some vehicles and see if I was interested in any of that stuff. Kind of gave me first crack at it, which was kind of cool. And ended up just kind of cruising around the countryside for a couple hours, and really got to know him and talked to him for a while. We kind of came from the same occupation, what I did before I started the shop here, and it was kind of cool. But he took me out for lunch and just had a good time with him. I think that load was the 59 3600, which was a beautiful truck, and a tan 63 Chevy long bed, which was in the patina was really cool on it. Just a neat looking truck. A couple months go by, I found a truck that was probably an hour past him out there. 68 or 9 C10. I always wanted to build one of them trucks and throw it on the ground, LS swap it, all that stuff. So my son decided he was going to take a trip with me. So the boy and I headed out. It was 50 degrees on the way out. Pretty nice, sunny. So the plan was to make the trip out and go look at this yellow C10. And if it wasn't everything it was cracked up to be, or as good as it looked in the photos, we'd stop at my friend's house on the way back and load up. So we get there, look the truck over. At first glance, it looked really nice. Nice paint job on it. Just a stalled project. Apparently, the guy's father-in-law was a body man, painting body. And the gentleman that owned the truck did the sheet metal work, and the father-in-law painted it. Well, you could clearly tell who did what work, because the rockers were just scabbed over in the cab corners. They didn't cut any of the cancer out, they just covered it up. So, if I was going to put some money into a truck and do a build, I'm not going to start with something like that. So we passed on it. We ended up staying in a hotel there. This is in Mitchell, South Dakota. Hey, Bruce. Go on, no, I'm busy. Go on. So we ended up getting a hotel there in Mitchell, South Dakota. And still like 50 degrees out, it's nice. And sitting in the hotel room, I turn the TV on, and the first thing that pops up is a blue screen, blizzard warning. Insert blizzard warning. So we're like, oh great. It's like 2 days before Christmas, and we're going to get stuck out in South Dakota in the blizzard. So we got up super early. It was an hour back to get to my friend's house with the trucks. So we got up at about, 4:30 or 5, and got on the road as early as we could. We sat there at this guy's house for or his property for an hour or so before the sun came up, and it was nasty. I mean bad. 50, 60 mile an hour winds, and the snow started rolling in, and it just sandblasted your face. It was terrible. And I went out and I picked out 61 C10, which is it was a pretty solid truck, missing a bunch of stuff, but when I try to buy as complete as possible. If it's something I want to sell, or even something I'm going to build, I want it to be as complete as possible. It's just easier to sell that way. People don't have to find a bunch of stuff. And I guess from a buyer standpoint, looking at it, it's just that much closer to being done, and it's easier to visualize the end result. The truck was missing a hood and a bunch of stuff out of the inside. It was missing a cluster and door panels and a bunch of odds and ends. This truck was sitting in the shed. He said that he had originally owned the truck, sold it to a friend of his right there local, and they did a little work to it, and got it going, repainted it, had it for a few years, and I don't want to say got sick of it, but move on to other things. So he ended up buying the truck back from him, and he ran it for a few years, got it out in summertime and cruised it. He was kind of feeling the same way, he had his fun with it and ready to move on. I looked the truck over, and I was kind of on the fence. I was like, well, you can buy it. I don't know if I'll fall in love with it, but I don't know. It's a cool little truck. I figured, what the heck? If anything, I'll break even on it. It had a set of factory wheels and tires on it, and we came to an agreement on the price where he would keep the stock wheels and hubcaps and give me these rally wheels to take along with, and we threw a set of junk roller tires on. So while he was running around gathering parts for the 61, the grill, hood, all this stuff, he's running around his property gathering this stuff up, and I was in the shed putting a set of junk roller tires on this thing so we could get it loaded up. Overnight, I said it was 50 degrees that evening. That next morning it was like down to 15 degrees. So with that wind blowing, he wasn't having very much fun out there. And I was in this out of the wind in the shed changing tires. So we get all our pieces and parts rounded up and everything loaded up and strapped down. It probably took me an hour to get tied down because I would run a couple straps and I couldn't feel my face or my fingers anymore, so I had to jump in the truck and warm up and get back out. And the more time that took, the further behind it was putting us with this storm. So I finally did get tied down and got headed out of there. And as soon as I pull out of the driveway, just kind of back on some side roads there, it's just white out. It's just snow moving across the road, and you can't even see where the road's at. It's like, great, what are we getting ourselves into here? We get a couple miles down the road and get on the interstate, and it wasn't too bad with the median and everything. The way the wind was blowing, I was able to see where I was going. So we took it easy. And we got just back into Minnesota, heading back towards Wisconsin, and coming up a hill, and the back end of the truck cuts loose, which I've dealt with before being in Wisconsin, but with 2 trucks loaded on a gooseneck trailer, and the wind's blowing sideways at 55 miles an hour, it's a little bit sketchy. Just the first time it catches you off guard. So we slowed down more, put it in 4-wheel drive, and I guess it had rain the evening before in that area. So the entire interstate is glare ice. And with the wind pushing you sideways like that, it was actually pushing the trailer out sideways behind the truck. And my son was getting pretty nervous about all this, so I reassured him that the old man was a dirt tracker from back in the day. We can drive sideways all the way home if we have to. So we're running about 40, 45, sometimes down to 30, just to keep traction. And there's semis and cars in the ditch everywhere. We're probably an hour into the trip, and we hear on the radio that right where we had just come through Sioux Falls, there was a 30-car pileup. So we missed that by 20 minutes, half hour. It's kind of scary, but just to give an example how bad the highways were. And then not much long after that, this cowboy in a semi just comes ripping past us. He was probably doing 60, and we're doing 30 or 40. And I told the boy, I said, yep, you watch. And sure enough, about 15 minutes later, he's got the trailer jackknifed across both lanes of traffic. And the semi's down in the median pointing at us. Like, yep, there you go. But the state trooper was there with his lights on already, so we saw him up ahead a ways. And we actually had to get down on the shoulder to get around the back end of the trailer. And I was probably doing 15 miles an hour, and I hit the brakes and nothing happened. It just kept sliding. We continued on about another hour and got about halfway across Minnesota, and just like a light switch, roads were dry and clear and hammer down. Made it back home. So at the end of the story here, this pickup didn't cost me a dime. Every truck I bought and sold, I made a little bit on. It's 6 or 7 trucks total it took me. But every cent I reinvested, and just kept building up to buy this thing. I've actually got this one and another one outside that I have nothing into. I just kept building off the profits. So I hope you liked my little tale of the C10. It just goes to show if you've got the will and the want, you can make just about anything happen. Thanks for sticking around for my little story. I hope to do a couple more videos like this, and I've got a whole bag of stories to tell. So thanks for watching. Well, one final piece of the puzzle to make the 66 complete. And I think it's destiny because I bought this knee knocker cab because I needed a door for that 63 GMC over there. Oh yeah. Bumbles bounce.
Bumbles bounce!
Oh yeah. Well, for a truck that was bought under blizzard and it's 20 below zero the entire time I had it in the shop working on it, it only seemed right to put these in here. And there was no visors in it, so it needed to sit anyway. I dubbed the Sub-Zero. Well, son, should we hang on to this little blue pickup for a while, or send her down the road and get the 65 Riviera done? Well, there you have it.